Yeah, we're getting it turned on. It's all on. Good afternoon. January the 12th. CJTV is live and open and ready to go. Ready to go. Today's episode is going to be kind of a little bit cool. On topic, off topic with 2026. Everything that's going on. We're getting the show set up, seeing what's coming in. Chats are open. Keep in mind, if you're going to participate with the show, keep it scholarly, keep it in the chat, keep it running pretty smooth. But today's topic, law enforcement and technology, the structure of technology and policing in 2026, the pros, the cons, the ups, the downs, the good, the bads, and kind of keep in mind, it's an academic system here on the show. We don't do politics. We don't do venue of social media of, following everybody that does the news and, other live streams. We talk about CJ, sociology, psychology, 2026, and the systematic problems in society, sociological development, kind of think criminology, psychology, sociology, criminal justice all go together. It's a big symbiotic circle. So let's get on with the show. Let me get a few things set up here before we get into the full show. And it should be pretty informative and entertaining because a lot of this stuff is based on what's coming out in the 2026 semesters of university, psychology, sociology, and CJ. We're going to move some stuff over. We're going to check our chats, make sure they're rocking. Yep, they're up here, ready to go. Of course, you're going to have to sign in, when you look at some of the chats, especially within X. But they're rocking, they're rolling, they're pretty good. And we're going to pull in on Rumble's chat and YouTube's chat because X right there, you have to be logged in. We weren't doing X, but everybody in the IT world and the IT U-verse, so to say, of universities are advising it. If you're going to push it out there and you're getting responses, put that out there on X because there are a lot of intelligent people out there that want to hear a little bit about what we're doing here for research. Also, up top, every episode for the information that myself and the assistant researchers, which I'm going to introduce here a little bit via the opportunity here after I'm looking at a few things. So anyway, the research that we do here is all loaded due to, need, request. And we get, requests and we get information. It's kind of fed in, but all of the actual files, all of the research, the academic scholars, the research scholars is all going to be available on Facebook for download through MediaFire. It'll be in the form of PDFs, of course, so we don't take it too much of your space and your super monstrous hard drives, but it's all good information. Keep in mind the chats are open. Feel free, kind of not restricted, just keep it clean, keep it routine, and keep it scholarly. Right now, for this episode, I'm going to drop this off, and I'm going to kind of introduce some of the scholars here up top, right above my head. It'll be Amanda Blankenship, Chloe Hensley, and Dylan McDonald. So their emails are right there. If you got any questions about the show or anything that we're talking about, please feel free. Hit one of the assistant researchers up. They'll be glad to respond to you via email. Talk to you if you got any ideas or interest of things that you actually want to see on CJTV, Criminal Justice TV, involving criminal justice, law enforcement, sociology, and psychology. Let us know. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions. And if you've got a relevant topic for 2026 or for the upcoming, spring semester, which technically just kicked off its first venue today, first week, that's where it's going to be. So chats are open. And those are the research assistants. I'll leave them open while we're talking about this next. The actual locations for you to get our information is going to be Facebook, MediaFile, download for the research that we're doing. We're live on YouTube, we're live on Rumble, and we just started doing X, kind of figuring out the X thing. So, but just remember the chats are open, and please feel free. Yeah, I know, I just got an email for Rumble. Yeah, that's my Iroquoian and gamer call. So, yeah, it's Dr. Mike Gurley, but when you see the Sabuco, that's my game call. Yes, I'm a gamer. I'm a nerd gamer. I do DDO. For those of you that don't know, it's, yes, Dungeons and Dragons Online. That's what I do at Sabuco. Anyway. All right, let's get on with this. I'm going to shift around. So, everybody, thanks for being here. For the actual episode itself, we're going to change a screen over. Police Technology 2026, the efficiency. And on the actual, presentation here, you've got more information about where to find us and the assistant researchers that took part in doing the research in this actual episode. So kind of jot that information down. You got any questions, shoot them an email about the episode. But we're going to cover the positives and the negatives. And when you're talking about 2026 police technology, I know it's all over social media, it's all over the news, it's all over the bandwagon of CNN, Fox, Newsmax, all the political, partisan or choice sides. But listening to what the media and what social media and society says about police technology, the best place to get the information is obviously from, in layman terms, the horse's mouth. You're not going to be able to choose or pick what the horse wants to eat unless you have that, kinesic conversation, physical and or observe the horse and find out what works for the horse. The same with police technology and policing in general, society. Police technology, it enhances law enforcement's efficiency, so to say, enhances safety, evidence collection through tools like simple body cameras, AI and surveillance. Yes, I said AI. Law enforcement does use AI, artificial intelligence. So we're going to cover that in the show. ALPR, facial recognition, that's all interpretive, and the AI is only as interpretive or detailed or good as the individuals or the practitioners inputting the data that AI searches from. It's kind of like AFIS for fingerprints, automatic fingerprint identification system. It's the same thing. The interpretation of the print, the details that are, identified and uploaded into AFIS. Let's get this thing shifting. The rise in the tech, the rise in the need for tech. Rapid adoption, it's acceptance of AI in law enforcement. AI, it's not smarter than the human being. It's only as intelligent or competent as the developer and or as the data information is input, the interpretive venue of AI, and the information you get back. But there's always that secondary source of validation, credible validity. That's a human being. So once again, the establishment of the need of human beings' cognitive ability to input correct data into a platform, a node, a server, script, whatever the script would be. Everybody hears in society the layman term or the acronym, the code monkey, which would be the professional at coding for IT, to include AI, the interpretative details. Different sets, large departments, body cameras, more intricate pieces of equipment, accountability, conservability of manpower. Technology rises. Technology conserves the need and the use for technology in departments. Do departments need to misvenue or misrepresent themselves for need of funding for specific technology when newer technology is in a platform for 2026 that is better than the technology that the department is actually looking for? That's why we have those professionals out there in the technology realm, the technology world. Controversial too. Technology is controversial. Law enforcement is a human spectrum. It's a human interaction. Criminology, criminal justice, psychology, sociology. It's a circle. It's a continuing ring. You can't have one without the other, and you're not going to have all three without the research behind all three, backing the development of all three, plus backing the development of all three together at the same time to meet a sociological need, or community policing, response, effectiveness, the pros and cons of the IT and the pros and cons of the professionals out there developing IT for law enforcement. The challenges, balancing, innovation, civil liberties. One would argue privacy, data. One would argue, the script of specific entities or specific agencies using different technologies. one more advanced than the other. The argument of privacy invasion, the need for transparency, the need for oversight, argument, commission boards, civilian review boards, legislative review. A lot of arguments come with technology and policing, law enforcement. They roll hand in hand. Predictive. What is predictive policing? I know this is no replacement for a classroom, but it's our venue to get information out to scholars, for those that are learning, for those that are in law enforcement, for those that are in psychology, for those that are in sociology, to understand how all three work together. IT affects, electronics affect the development, industrial technology affects all three at the same time. And we're going to kind of tie all of that in together. Facial recognition is one of those things of interpretation, only as good as, the data. Body cameras, the pros and the cons, we're going to talk about that. ALPR, automatic license plate readers. Pros and cons of this rise and development of technology. Remember, the chats are open. I'm looking and seeing who's coming in. Going to look real quick and see what the moderators are. Not that hopefully we won't need any moderators, but let's make sure the moderators are always good to go. Yeah, again, in my other chat, that is my gamer handle. I just didn't change it. Thanks, everybody. That's a gamer handle. Crime prevention. Yeah. IT, technology, crime prevention, even a body camera, CCTV cameras, security cameras. Santa Cruz case. That's something that, is within some of the research that we have, and we display our research and our sources at the end of the show, so you'll be able to look at that. Santa Cruz, down percentages. Now, a lot of people would argue it's a political venue for what one says. What is the crime statistic that is reported through the UCR, and what is the crime statistic that has not been reported, to the UCR, which would be FBI, plus is the crime statistic in the current moment that is not being reported to give an accurate statistic. Well, you can only go off of what's actually is, reported. So when people have a venue of argument about a crime statistic, example, Santa Cruz burglary down 19% in the past 6 months, you've only got the reported statistic from Santa Cruz to the FBI and the UCR to be released through Uniform Crime Report and other entities or other venues of crime reporting. That's really what you have, unless you're going to actually get full disclosure from the agency itself for active cases and or cases that are secondary to the date of reporting to the UCR. So when you listen to social media, the news networks, of course, you're going to have the argument because you're not really going to get anything accurate. And there's no 100% means to get anything accurate for crime prevention in IT unless you're getting the information second by second to add to and or compare what has been reported previous date or previous submission to the Uniform Crime Report and or alternate reporting means. Data-driven decisions. Yeah, data. Example. Algorithm, Los Angeles, the information, the traditional methods of accuracy. Now, when I say data-driven, you're talking about AI. Data-driven, too, is also interpretive. Whatever the platform that the data is coming into the agency, it's interpretive. Human beings. Total accountability tools are taken into account. Justice system accountability. You're looking at crime. And when you refer to justice system, you can compare any crime or anything that would be a sociological venue or psychological venue to argue as the response and or the means or the rational choice theory for crime to happen. But it's not going to be 100% accurate in the moment. So when you're hearing all of this negate, pro, con reporting for one agency's increase or one city's increase or one agency's reporting a decrease or a city's decrease, it's never going to be 100% because it's only as accurate as the human being interpreting the data and the human being that adds the data to the reported data to National Reporting Surveys or UCR. If anybody's got a question or comment, put it in the chat. I know it's a lot of information and it's a fire hose sometimes. That's what I've been told. A giant fire hose. Let's go back, see if we can get into... Yeah, we kind of talked about the lack of accuracy, but we're not trying to turn this into a boredom classroom. Let's kind of hit off with facial recognition. I'm going to have to get me a new set of headphones one day. These things aren't that great. All right, police technology. Body-worn cameras, facial recognition. So let's hit with facial recognition. The pros, identify suspects. Yes, it's a pro to this. You can identify someone, but the identity is only going to be as good as the biometric detail that is entered into a system, a node, a server, a source to keep information based on the construct of biometric physical of a person already. It's kind of like fingerprints. Think fingerprints. You're not going to know who the person is or who the suspect is if you gain or gather fingerprints, because you're running it through AFIS and there's no hit. There's no comeback. Well, person's never been identified, never been arrested, never been fingerprint, never been printed in a facility, a law enforcement facility, to where the blue cards are sent to. When I say blue cards, law enforcement, not the, red employee or the green or whatever it would be for a permit basis, but it's going to be a blue card. It's never been sent to AFIS. It's never been entered. There's nothing to compare it to. There's no match. Now, can a physical match be done by a human being who is a fingerprint analyst, all levels of fingerprint analyst, and who can be an interpreter for an AFIS response or an AFIS hit? Yes. Thus, you have to rely on a human being. Even if you get an AFIS hit, you still have to rely on a fingerprint comparison from someone who is certified to do the fingerprint match and or validate the AFIS hit, because that's the one that's going to be testifying in the courtroom, not a node or a server or a computer. It's not going to be like an AFIS machine on legs walking in, in a robot voice saying, yes, it was a hit, here's the match. It's going to be a human being defining the definitive detail, the breakdown of why there was a positive. So facial recognition runs the same way. Biometrics. Person, identify someone in a crowd. Well, if you don't have the biometrics of a person, a face biometric, physical biometric, you're not going to be identifying anybody. Do not let the movies confuse you. Now, does the facial recognition, entity exist out there? Yes, of course it does, because driver's licenses, photos, passport photos, prior arrest photos everywhere, photos all over the place that can be attained, gathered, gained, stored by law enforcement through technology, meaning storage, SATA drives, hard drives, servers, nodes, quick access, sharing of information. The facial recognition, the con, misidentification, higher rates, minority groups. Yep, I said it. There you go. Minority groups. Why? Skin tone, facial feature, bone structure, color, day, evening, light, facial, just the way it is. I mean, you're going to have to break down and tell the truth someday, and some people have a hard time with it. Me, myself, I've seen the error in real life, misrepresentation. ID positive, not the person, because of light, location, shading, angle of the camera that one is trying to interpret and use to compare to facial recognition. Bone structure, especially bone structure. That's one of the hard hitters. One of the hard hitters I've seen, through, forensic anthropologists at specific universities that explain about the differences in bone structure and how it can aid in misinterpretation of race. So if it can aid in misinterpretation of race, and I'm talking about anthropologists and forensic anthropologists that deal with human bone, what do you think it's going to do with light, fragmentation, all right, skin tone? It's going to do the same thing. How can officers be trained to treat FRT as a tool rather than a final answer? Well, it's not a final answer. You could get think AFIS. You're still going to have some means of verification. There have been cases, especially, we have cases that we've done research here, on the show, to where federal courts, U.S. Supreme Court has been, involved in it, to where opinions and decisions have been applied to facial recognition software. A human being has to actually verify it. And there are examples of misidentification through, facial recognition, IT. Officers get there, law enforcement gets there, a physical ID is made of the person, and it is not the person. So there are the actual errors. So you're going to have to train law enforcement to traditionally Think prior IT. Identify the person, match the person through interview techniques. Thus, biometric training for law enforcement in the training spectrum. How to identify specific features of someone. And that takes good supervision and good leaders, mentors, trainers, ones with experience to actually break that down, the biometric identifiers. IT, the technology, is not always a final resort for something, because anyone can jump on a AI server. You know, one day we'll probably do it here on the show. I know where there are a bunch of good ones, but you can type anything, specific details, if you know a biometric, feature about a person. And there are some AI platforms that go into forced measurement, to where you're taking the biometric measurements of a person's face, bone structure as it appears with flesh, and you're entering that data. You're entering that information into AI, and shortly thereafter, after the process, you have a human being that looks like someone you know. It's a perfect match to what you're looking for. Facial recognition. The AI, the computer, the IT, the software is only as good as the person that is writing the code or writing the script to put the information in. Good question, though. Facial recognition updates, NIST, all right? 2024, 2025 show improved accuracy for FRT, but environmental factors, again, low light, poor camera angles, especially bad and poor camera angles. You look up and you see the angle of the camera, or the camera's dirty, it's got spider webs on it, or fog from last month, or dirt from last month. Yeah, I said fog from last month because of the moisture in the dirt. Now you've got mud, so technically you've got the fog from last month if you actually break it down in so to say, compendium of chemistry, the periodic table, and what's left on the camera lens. Yep. Significant demographic disparities, and I'm talking about demographic meaning region, location, urban versus rural, light. There's so much that one could argue, but a key takeaway from the FRT, facial recognition, it's a it's a strong, powerful, investigative tool. It's a lead. It's not a judge. It's technology. It's code. It's interpretation. It's data storage being fed, gained data to find the match in a program that is scripted, coded, and written to perform a specific procedure, only the procedure that a human being has coded it, programmed it to do. Period. It's kind of like asking a hamburger cook again to cook a fruit salad. The hamburger cook is only going to be as good as someone that trained them to make a fruit salad. May taste good, may taste bad. You never know. Other, facial recognition concerns on a PowerPoint, wrongful arrests. Have there been wrongful arrests? Yes, there are Supreme Court decisions on facial recognition, wrong arrest. There are multiple case studies on facial recognition, wrong arrest. There are multiple judiciary reviews and decisions and appeals in the appellate court through wrongful facial arrest and conviction. Yes, and conviction. New age, new day. Think of the Innocence Project and DNA. DNA release. DNA was a popular, push out to society. The Innocence Project took lead, took grab, took hold on it. First year, over 200 exonerations. We're talking about people that have been in prison for years, not just a couple of days or a couple of weeks, which is 10, 12, 15, exonerated. DNA, not the true person. Now we've got those IT issues again. The interpretation of DNA, the interpretation of mitochondrial, the interpretation of paternal. A lot of factors. And there have been a lot of research out there about the misuse of DNA and the gaining of DNA by law enforcement from specific entities that collect DNA. What about company 123andMe, your DNA, Ancestry.com, stuff like that collects DNA. And yes, we've got that on the show, and we can supply to send an email to one of the assistant researchers, and they'll be more than happy to share that data with you, because I'll forward it to them and they can send it to you. Now, if they take time reading it, don't get mad at them. Please don't. Let's move on. Let's move on to everybody's favorite topic. The BWCs. Excuse me, the body-worn cameras. Now, pros, body-worn cameras. Increase accountability. Yes, we know. Is someone lying? That really happened? The past week, yeah. Body-worn cameras. The big thing on the TV, social media, the news. Accountability, reduce misconduct, provide critical evidence for prosecution. Now, keep this in mind. Even though it's right in front of your face, according to the body-worn camera, it's still arguable. Still arguable. You're not going to get everything. How many times has society seen a body-worn camera and it's been obstructed by arms, obstructed by hands, body movement? Body-worn cameras on the thoracic region, typically body armor plate carriers. I said body armor plate carrier. Even the cool things that look all uniform that has body armor, it's still a body armor carrier. And if there's a plate in it protecting forward or secondary from soft body armor, it's still a plate carrier because you're carrying a plate. So argue it however you want to for those in law enforcement or those that, well, it's not plate carrier. Yes, it is. Period. Done over. It's a plate carrier. If you're wearing soft armor and a plate that prevents excessive penetration into the thoracic region, yeah, you're carrying a plate carrier, regardless of how big the plate is. So, back to topic. If you're wearing a camera on the plate carrier, clothing, arms, hands, action, resistance, something's going to get in the way. Research information, simple research information. Body-worn cameras are not standard in all departments. They're not. There are multiple departments around the United States that do not wear body cameras. And there are multiple departments around the United States, policy and procedure, standard operational guideline, wear body cameras. As of 2012 to 2026, 59% reduction in use of force incidents. Why? Society knows they're being videoed. Society knows the eyes of IT and interpretation and human interpretation and the media, social media, the jury, the judge, attorneys, the court itself, the judiciary review, the eyes of the judiciary review are on the recorded video. The interpretation of self, the interpretation of individual, the video is telling me the truth. There is no lie in the video. Now, we're not getting into the detail of altering video. That would be evidence, and that would go as far as a total new episode for evidence tampering. Misuse of evidence. The challenges, 2026, body cameras. Isn't having the body camera, it's about controlling the footage, the interpretation. How many times have you yourself as an individual watching this show, watch the social media stream, the news media. You saw body camera footage and you saw one angle, you saw another angle, you saw another angle, and then you watched multiple points of view and people argue over what possible, what should have, what could have, what the interpretation was. It is all going to be different. It's all going to be selective. It's all going to be different. It's kind of like arguing taste. It's the taste and the interpretation of interpretive kinesic venue. What was the intent? What was the moving? Was there true intent behind something? What was the rationality of the person being videoed? What introduced the trauma? What introduced the rationality and choice theory? The interpretation. Period. That's the biggest problem in 2026. The controlling of the footage. And we're not talking about keeping it and not releasing it to the public. It's controlling the interpretation by persons, society, law enforcement, psychologists, sociologists, normal people in society that are articulating what they're seeing on a video based off of self-interpretation. That's all it is. Without a strict policy of interpretation, meaning kinesic behavior and linguistic interpretation, you're never going to have anything that's unarguably 100% correct. That's just the bottom line. I mean, take recent events and the media. The media is, a convincing monster. The media is a convincing tool for society. Critical moments may be misunderstood, misused, undetermined. And then again, that fractures the level of community trust. Reduction in, force. When I say reduction in force, I mean reduction in use of force. But body-worn cameras, venue, high cost. They're not cheap. It's not like going to the Dollar Tree or dollar store or Walmart and buying a camera, buying a throwaway box camera. You're talking like hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for one unit that are on 24/7. Those batteries aren't cheap. The recharge, right? Again, we have problems. Think of facial recognition. Think of body cameras. The problems, lighting, right? Demographics, atmosphere, fog, moisture, wind, for what? Linguistic interpretation versus kinetic interpretation, kinesic, the movement. Why is someone walking fast in an aggressive manner? The wind's blowing, you can't hear the linguistics, so all you can interpret is the kinesic, the physical, but you're not understanding the true defining moment. You're not know, you just simply don't know what's being said. All you have is one interpretation, because some things are non-interpretable. And then again, that's when society is going to use that can interpret it and compound on it and convince other members of society. Now, we're not arguing whether that's a good thing or bad thing in society. We're talking about the pros and cons of technology in law enforcement, regardless of anyone's viewpoint or venue politically. That's not what we're here for. But there are pros and there are cons to all of it. Potential misidentifications with body cameras too as well. Yeah, I've seen a few cases of those from some friends, Memphis PD. Excuse me. Coming down with that super talk a lot cough, and I left my drink in the other room. Look at me, prepared and ready to go. I need to hire some super animals with bags that could go get that drink. License plate readers. Man, it's a good one. License plate readers. Had a researcher send me this. Pros of them. I've seen them, I've used them, and we had, old Eagle Eye systems that would take the actual information as sent, and it would be sent to, county and or county registry to match those. But it wasn't a national-ish, dissemination of the information. It was local. So that was, that's one of the limiters, so to say, the cons. But it's actually a pro too, because if a database is kept accurately for the actual location, meaning the county, like the county tax office where you go get your tax, and dispatch or headquarters or command has that link or has that tied server, electronically. Local, it's good for local law enforcement, but nationally, out of state, still relying on NCIC. You're still relying on, the good old dispatch system. It's not an automatic thing in your car. Pros. Yeah, identify stolen car due to license plate. That simple stuff we can figure out. Assist in locating, a suspect, improve traffic safety, just due to IDing a plate, the car, the specific car. Switched plates, stolen cars. This is common sense stuff. But the inaccuracy, 90%, meaning 1 in 10 are misread. And this is a 2026 study. Like I said, all of our research, we have, have it listed, and it'll be displayed here at the end of the show. May take one screen, may take two screens, but we disclose it all. And it's actually listed in Facebook on the media share and media file. And we actually put some of it on the YouTube and the Rumble detail. It depends on how much the actual publication for the live feed will actually let us put in. Typically it's limited to 3,000, 4,000 characters. But as of 2026, updated research, 90% accuracy. All right, great. That's IT. We argued this. It means that has to be a human being to interpret this. Has to be someone to read this and match this. Now, think of a dispatcher. Think of headquarters of a law enforcement agency getting the actual plate tags from an officer on the road, matching it to what NCI says. What NCIC is turning it back, right? Well, turn back and turn around of information. The potential for abuse too. Yeah. misinterpretation. Traffic stops, detainments based on that 1 in 10 misread, misinterpretation. 1 in 10. Let's move on. High cost on these things. Oof, these things aren't cheap. Who do you think's paying for this? It's not the agency themselves. It would be grant money, but where does the grant money come from? Where does the federal money come from? Where does the state money come from? It all comes from somewhere. It doesn't grow on a tree. So technically, it's coming from society. So sociological issues turn into sociological payouts for law enforcement to enforce a sociological structure of legislative created laws. And in legislative law, the use of technology exists in legislative law to give law enforcement extra tools. But, and out of all, reality and honesty, if you do read legislative structure or anything that would be judiciary review of IT, there is very little written, very little distinguished that's non-gray area for accountability. Now, it's not a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a sociologically developed issue. Why do we have IT? Why do we have the need for facial recognition, CCTV, license plate readers? If society was not committing crime, we would have no need for law enforcement, the CJ system, criminal justice system, because it would be a perfect society. Sociological problems and sociological dilemmas push the need for IT advancement in law enforcement. Thus, when we say criminal justice, psychology, and sociology, they all work together and band together. You can't get away from them. It's a symbiotic circle. Hey, there you go. No crime, no CJ, no criminal justice, no need for psychologists, no need for us to have a show and talk about law enforcement and criminal justice, technological advancement. It's there. High costs. Sociological change, sociological dilapidation, and the need for high-cost IT. Society is the main developer of the need. The main developer of the need for IT. Talked about that. Talked about Santa Cruz. Talked a little bit about facial recognition. License plates, more detail, more data that we're not going to cover this whole PowerPoint, but more detail and more data that the researchers actually go through. And keep in mind, again, it is actually listed on Facebook, our Facebook side. And we'll put this up real quick now that we're actually talking about this. Right there, you'll see it as number 1. Then you'll see YouTube, Rumble, and X, but Facebook, we're not actually live feeding on because, you got to be up for a certain amount of days, and CJTV has not been there for that amount of days. But when we are, we'll start live, streaming there. But the Circle, the Media Fire, all the details, all the data, all the research, we openly present it and offer it for a free download. Hopefully it'll help someone in the academic area as the semesters move on. Let's get rid of this and throw the chats back up. The chats are moving slow, but it's 2 o'clock on a Monday. The world is active. The world is shifting. We understand this. Other pros and cons. Less than lethal. Less than lethal. Let's see if we can move this over. Yeah, we got more predictive data. We just kind of throw up the actual PowerPoint. So on the actual stream, people have the ability to see that we do put together presentations and we do present outside of just live stream. And keep in mind, the actual data is available for download. Future police technology. Before we get to less than lethal, AI generated. Man, the courts have AI generated. Attorneys' offices, lawyers' offices, counsel offices have AI generated. Open up a file and it's form flow. You just input the data. It is. Case law, case study, cases that are used to argue as set precedent in the courtroom. All AI. Firearm detection. And firearm detection. The audible noise, AI. What is the interpretation of the noise? Is it a car backfiring? Is it a specific platform that's being used, meaning handgun, shotgun, rifle? Yes, there are programs and there is technology to identify and break down specific platforms, meaning what type of handgun, what type of, long rifle, what type of shotgun. If you have the means to download a ballistic calculator on your phone, multiple companies, Winchester, Hornady, Strelok, you can download ballistic calculators on your phone for all kinds of platforms, handguns, rifles. You can, fathom the idea of the audible recognition, the firearm detection, advanced sensory, public places and schools, acoustic gunshot detection, real time for immediate response. Is it a backfire? Is it a firecracker? Is it a car? Costs a lot of money and it is not free. Now, the integrated system of that, the interpretation of that, the misuse of that, who's interpreting it? It's the interpretation of IT, and IT is only based upon the intelligence level of the programmer or the data input person, the individual putting in the data that the IT or the technology is going to interpret. Think AFIS, Automated Fingerprint Identification System. The machine, the entity, the AI, the technology, it's developed, it's created. The information is only as good as the human being inputting the data, the performance. Less than lethal. Let's get out of this one. Let's talk about some less than lethal. Let's get back to that main screen. All right, less than lethal. It's one of those interesting topics that everybody likes to bring to the forefront. Less than lethal. Let's shift over this. I'm looking at some of the information coming through email. Sometimes we get emails too. We appreciate the emails. I appreciate the emails. Gives good talking points. But then again, our scholars themselves, our research scholars, developing scholars at the universities, they're the ones that get all the credit for it because they're the ones that supply the detail that we post in media fire on Facebook. Less than lethal. Pros, cons. Reduce need for lethal force. We know that. Death. We've, all seen, the publications on the media and the TV, does one really need to use something that, creates that much damage to the human body? Can it be something less than lethal? The pros and the arguments. Reduce the need for lethal force, enhancing officer safety and the safety of society. Yes, I said officer safety. Because you got to think of this. The world of IT, regardless of whatever IT device that it is, there's always going to be a pro and a con to it. There's always an ethical question. Why the need for that piece of IT? Why the need for that piece of equipment? Well, it's a sociological development. Does society itself need the IT? Does it need the technology? Does society need the less lethal tool, the taser? Does it need it? Instant decontamination, the reduction of serious injury, risk of fatality, despite the less lethal label devices like, rubber ballistic or, rubber beanbag projectiles and tasers can still cause, severe injury. Trust me, I know. I have been hit with all of them in training. Now, I know some people would say, some officers on the street would say, you allowed yourself to be, have a platform used on you. Yes, sure did. All three. Think about it. That's kind of like handcuffing. How do you know the effect of it if you don't know firsthand? Taser, beanbag, rubber, projectiles. Yeah, guys, I'm not talking about like 2 feet away. I'm talking about good distance with, protective kit on, of course. Not, clean to the face, but protected body. Yeah, you're still going to feel it. You're still going to feel it. Even if it's hitting body armor, you're still going to feel it, and you're going to know it hit you, and you're going to know what the actual level of force would be on human tissue. Thus, the ethical use of it, those that are trained in it, those that are not misusing the tool. I saw on TV the other day, the 40 millimeter, the Freeze Plus P, literally a foot away into somebody's face. I know some of you maybe saw that on, TV, but I was at the university and someone sent me a, PM, and it had this, hey, Dr. Gurley, what do you think of this? And it was an officer literally within 4 feet with a 40 millimeter in someone's face. Stuff like that, that's ethical. And one would argue, well, the person reached down and grabbed the sling of the tool. Well, the officer created a reactionary gap. The officer could have created a little bit more of a reactionary gap instead of, a full punch with that platform at the person's face. We're not arguing good or bad behavior. We're arguing injury. Period. End of story. Now, that is the need for the less than lethal tool, the injury. Think of the development, the ethical development, the pro of the need for the risk factor, psychological, sociological, mental health, period. Is someone truly, it is the intent to harm, or is it a psychological issue? That's just one example, right? Limited effective range. These tools only have, specific ranges. They do not have the range of a secondary, which would be a handgun. They do not have the range, which would be a primary, a rifle. Now, not everyone has access to every one of these platforms we're talking about here. Less than lethal. Projectile tools. All right? Projectiles. Things that are in the air. Now, when you say range or talk about range, some of them have adequate range. 50, 60. I've even trained with a few Ultra 100s or, U1000s that have range of up to 500 and 600. But the kinetic energy is severely reduced. It's not as, powerful as it would be at 20 feet. But the range is still there. Thus the distance, training, ethical use. Thus I brought up the example of the 40 in the face with, which would be freeze plus B. It would be just, gas, simple, not tear gas either. You know it's freeze plus B, or it's a different concoction other than tear gas. I'm not going to get into the details of it and confuse everybody, but when it's red and you're law enforcement, you know what it is. A lot of people that, see red, they would like to think of the, Firefox or Foxfire, the bull dropper, especially state troopers. Think bear mace. Yeah. Potential for misuse of excessive force. Now, less than lethal is great, man. I'm all for it. I'm all about it. And I'm all for lethal when the need, comes. But the misuse, the psychological, the sociological construct of the officer. Officers come from society. Law enforcement comes from society. Just like society develops the problems within society that legislative venue has to make a law for judiciary review based on moral ought to, moral ought not. That's constructed off of a sociological identification of, hey, this is wrong. Let's put certain people in positions that can argue and litigate the new, the need for law. Then we have new IT, new tools, go before legislator, go before lawmakers, and the lawmakers say, yep, we can use it. Less than lethal. It's great. Where's the ethical venue? That's something that's behavioral based. That's something that has to be addressed by those departments that are using those actual tools that are less than lethal. Limited effective range, reduced stopping power. Reduced stopping power means, quite possibly the intent of reoccurrence of using that less than lethal tool. We were here last time on I think we discussed, use of force, and we discussed maximum use of force, the one time to prevent injury. Potential for misuse or excessive use, meaning excessive use of force. So we've got those kind of arguments that we need to kind of look at, and we need to kind of understand a little bit. There's a risk of officers, individually escalating things too. Yeah, individual officers escalating legal liability risks, and that's what it turns into for municipalities, judiciary reviews, and ties up the court system as well. The danger, improper, close, kind of like some of the stuff we see on the media. day by day. Let's see what one of the chats says. Could tech reduce human empathy in policing, or could it enhance it? Well, when you're talking about empathy or apathy for knowledge, empathy and apathy, the choice of no interest versus, emotional and or psychological or emotion empathy and apathy. Yeah, it could, but that's technically IT is an interest area, meaning the agency or the department itself has an interest in something that is going to develop and or enhance the department's ability to perform, the ability to respond, the ability to prevent crime, to statistically analyze and interpret where the problem areas are, community-based policing, problem-oriented policing. Empathy, apathy, it could, based on interest, but that's one of those things that one would have to actually do a serious bout of research on and do a literature review. And after the literature review would be a meteorological decision, so to say. How are you going to analyze it? How are you going to look at IT, apathy? Yeah, if society's interested in it, those that are interested in, IT or technology growth are always going to be interested in how it affects law enforcement, how it's going to change the spectrum. Let's move over to systematic algorithms. Now, everybody likes a good algorithm, right? Everybody likes a good Facebook or YouTube live or, different social media platform live algorithm. We get it, man. We like it. But here on this show, we're arguing the bias of inaccuracy of algorithm in technology. Predictive policing tools. We're arguing the pros and we're arguing the cons. Now, there's a lot of good that comes from technology in policing. And there's also a lot that's, questionable in technology and policing itself. Bias and accuracy, historical, database release leading to a disproportionate focus on a target area, a target race, a target population. Yeah, it happens. You can't get away from case review, and we're not arguing pro legality or pro or anti any specific race. We are identifying that research from 2012 to 2026, which we will have uploaded on Mediafire, and it'll be at the end of this presentation here, this live feed. It's been a problem. There are statistical numerical values that are consistent with each other. Generated false alerts leading to unnecessary police, deployments through, command, dispatch, based on something that is a technology acquired identification, not a human 911 call, technology, not a human being. And let me repeat this again, not a human being, technology. All right, black box operations. Now, I know a lot of people do not understand. They think black box, they think black ops or, special spooky, undercover stuff. No. Many AI data fusion centers they're just simply opaque. There's nothing colorful. There's nothing interpretative. It's just bland. It is what it is. And the data is opaque, period. Making it impossible for one single officer, the public, or the court to understand how the AI or the technology center reached a decision. Interpretation. Think biometrics. Think interpretation of linguistic value. Think of the body cam. You see the kinesic, but you don't hear the audible because there's a limitation. There's a storm going on. There's wind. There's lightning. There's rain. Yeah. You see the physical run, but you do not hear the linguistic values of fear. Just examples. Opaque. It is what it is, and it is what you see. The rest is up for interpretation. It's much like an interview and interrogation. You can compare technology to interview and interrogation. Interview, continuing symbiotic circle. Interrogation, accusatory. Well, you're going to take IT and technology, which have pros and have cons, and you're going to use it in interview and interrogation. The continuing symbiotic circle of information of interview, it's the opaque, it's the black box if you're going to solely rely on technology and not the human interaction. The lack of empathy and context, period. Apathy, empathy, same thing. AI systems excel at, producing information, data. But AI does, it doesn't produce anything that's human judgment. It lacks human judgment. Its apathy for empathy exists. It's there in AI. It's only as good as the one punching the keyboard to program the information into the technology. It's kind of like, 2 and 2. A lot of people would say 4. No, 2 and 2 is 22. 2 plus 2 is 4. Just one of those, linguistic review things. Resource constraints, training. Having the technology and the IT is great. It's fantastic. It's good. If the agency has the money, has the backing, has the funding for it, and has the support for the technology from a local administration and the city, the county, city administrators as well. Outdated. It outdates fast. You buy a new car, it's a couple $1,000s and, less in value the minute you drive it off the lot. It's just soiled systems, so to say. Law enforcement agencies struggle with it because it's so fragmented. Are you behind the times? The lack of, ability impedes the need. How many of you have got that new cell phone and 2 weeks later the new cell phone came out and you were upset because you didn't wait 2 weeks because the new cell phone is resulting in a better targeted outcome for what you want to do, your platforms that you want to run, on, your cameras, your audibles, what apps you want to use. Outdated. Thus, the opaqueness again in the institutions or the businesses that are creating technology. It's opaque. What is less expensive for them to make a profit off of, and is the company or the institution or the agency that is developing technology, is the real concentration on community policing, public-oriented policing, sociological-oriented policing, or is it based on one thing, the almighty dollar to enable law enforcement to see a need for technology and the advancement of it, the pro for the developer, but yet the con for the agency, because as soon as it's bought, a new need appears again, and the technology is now out of date. It's soiled technology. It's a distraction too. Hate to break the news to everybody, but it's a distraction. It is a distraction. I remember through my career when we carried tape recorders, and every time you got out of the car, you had to hit that tape recorder play. Then we had body mics. They recorded into the systems of the car, but the farther you get away from the car, the less what you can hear. You can still see the video, but the range of the video, the minuteness of the grain, depending on, the quality, it's, is it 4K, 2, 3? Is it only making, MPEG 2s, 3s, 4s? It just depends on what the actual camera's making and the audio. It's opaque. It's out of touch. It just depends on, I guess the research value of the agency. Are they really going to spend time on researching what is the need and what is the need going to be weeks, months, years down the road before the investment is made? What do you think about the money? Put it in the chat. What about the money being spent by agencies on technology? What do you think about the money? I mean, there are a lot of ways we can argue money and how money's used in law enforcement and the CJ system and how it's good or bad, but what about the money and technology? Give me your thoughts on that. Let's get over here and check the old email, see what's happening. Getting a few things in. Getting some questions from... Got a few questions from Nashville PD. Have to look at those. Not Nashville PD itself, but officers in Nashville. And Myland. All right, core disadvantages. Let's talk about cybercrime before we conclude out the show here for a little bit. A core disadvantage. Now, the development of IT in law enforcement signifies that there's a need sociological, right? There's a need for that IT development. If there's a need sociological for IT development, do you not think or rationalize that when society sees that law enforcement, the CJ system, judiciary review has advanced, society is going to advance and surpass that, thus make CJ, law enforcement, policing's IT opaque now, simplistic. Think cybercrime. An example would be digital fraud, facilitated identity theft, and hijacking. IT, cybercrime hijacking. We're not talking about physical hijacking because the show is about IT, technology. Financial crimes. We developed IT, we developed technology to counter this behavior in society. Society is going to counter the technology that law enforcement has developed to counter it. It's just a revolving door. It's like phishing and ransomware. It just keeps growing. Online scams keeps growing. A privacy erosion, surveillance risks. That's a problem. CCTV, data mining. Data mining can be done through CCTV. It's kind of like telling someone, be careful where you take your card out. Is there a camera over your head? Where are you being videoed at? What is the angle of the video? It's, who remembers, going to the ATM or inputting your code and covering, your hand. Most people walk up and just punch the numbers, not knowing that they're being videoed from 2, 3, possibly 4 different angles. All your information being data mined physically, kinesically. Don't even need a linguistic phone call for that. Watch the biometric behavior of the body. Technological limitations, glitches, relying on technology. Man, the reliance on technology can distract law enforcement. Like I said, having to hit this button, hit that button, ensure that, when you're down and you hit that, on your whole center console, hit those specific switches, that this light, that light comes on. These little remind me lights. Yeah, is that, is that a takedown light, or is that a takedown switch, or who knows? It just depends. Some people, from back in the day know what I'm talking about. Some people from, now in the present time don't pick up on the terminology because everything's been simplified. It's been dumbed down a lot. Yes, law enforcement has been dumbed down a lot. I'll be the one that actually breaks that out too. Let me see. I think investing in police technology is important, but we need to make sure the money actually improves safety and trust, not just buy the newest gadget. Yeah, that's where the opaque, the outdated, do we really need to buy the gadget now because it's the high-speed, coolest thing? Is the department looking into the future? Is the department actually making the effort to, investigate? Is this a need just now? Is this a temporary fix, or is this a fix for the problem that we have right now that has the capability to prevent in the future, and we can advance on or upgrade in the future to prevent this specific incident, this specific act or crime or moral ought not from happening and developing in the future? So yeah, it's a good thing, but where's the money being spent? And I can tell you firsthand, I've been into a lot of storage rooms and I've been in a lot of departments, a lot of agencies, training, talking, and a lot across the globe, not just the United States, across the globe. Seen a lot of wasted equipment, seen a lot of storage rooms, seen a lot of equipment just sitting there. Why are you hitting the light? Stop hitting the light. Yeah, one of my lighting people. Yeah, I've got one assistant for the day, kind of helping me out. Power, electrics. Why? Because we have some windy weather here. Just wanted to make sure nothing went out. But yeah, financially, yeah. Where is it all going? Where is it all going? All right. I'm going to throw this up real quick again. Our assistant researchers, there they are. Amanda Blankenship, Chloe Hensley, Dylan McDonald. If you got any questions and you have any, topics of, serious concern or just something just to, have that feed about, let us know. Shoot them an email and they'll be more than happy to talk with you, give you an ear, hear what you have to say via, text and a script, and maybe, have a, conversation with you if it, goes to that. They'll be more than happy to interact with you. And let me see what's going on. Yep. X is dead in the chat. Rumble's dead in the chat, but that's all cool because it's the afternoon on a Monday, and hopefully everybody's out rocking and rolling in the world, making things happen. You know, the universities are up and moving. Keep in mind, this is not a substitute for the classroom. This is not a substitute for any college, university, or any educational platform. This is a live feed. We cover topics that are topics of interest, but we graze them, we touch them, we do the one grain of sand on the beach. And everything that we talk about, yes, we research in depth, but we graze the surface. That's all we do here. We make it interesting enough to where one makes that cognitive decision, I must learn more. I must educate myself more. Thus, the need for the higher level of learning, colleges, universities, wherever you may choose to go. And again, I'm looking, yep. Emails are stopped, and it's probably that time that everybody's working. Everybody's back on the job. Remember, our assistant researchers, we're on Rumble, we're on YouTube, we're on X. And if you want to send me an email, drmikeleeg@gmail.com. And all of our data is downloadable. So without further ado, everyone have a great day. Thanks for spending the last hour and 15 minutes with us approximately. We're about to close the show out, but don't go anywhere because we're going to actually have the QR codes and the actual research listed. If you want to save the research when the show stops, give it about 10-15 more minutes for whatever platform to circulate it, upload it, filter it, whatever the technology does. Go back into the show, forward it out, go to the ending credits of this show, freeze it, stop it. You'll be able to see the research. It's all current and or relevant research. We try to keep it within 3 to 5 years, but if we go outside of 3 to 5 years, it is an EG, meaning exemplar and or continuation to new current research 3 to 5 years based on older research, to where the older research was used or cited in the 3 to 5 year research. So we keep it current, we keep it flowing, and we keep it a reliable, continuous, to where it has validity and reliability. And it's open to all scholars. So if you watch this show and you want to help out and you want to jump in, shoot one of the assistant researchers an email and you will see them again. Without further ado, police technology pros and cons. We grazed the surface, kind of like scratching a piece off of an orange peel. Not a substitute for school or university, but it is us trying to put it out there. Have a great day.